get into So It Goes. Let's get into your career. It's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
My absolute pleasure.
So let's begin our journey with 6 years ago. This pandemic changed so much for all of us, especially musicians. How did you get through that era, and how did it influence the way that you create and live in 2026?
Yeah, so I pivoted, to use a catchphrase there, from the pandemic to almost entirely teaching. So I was doing about 30 hours a week on Zoom, teaching private lessons. It was isolating and difficult and exhausting, but it allowed me to make enough money to comfortably make my way through the pandemic. I also took advantage of a number of small grant programs, local programs for artists, to kind of keep the money coming in. And I really got deep into electronics and performing as a soloist, which is something that I've been doing off and on. I come to Kansas City once a year. I've been going out to Warrensburg, to Central Missouri, out there for a conference called Mox Sonic, which is kind of a computer music and experimental music academic conference. And so I have been performing solo out there kind of since we came back from the pandemic. This will be my fourth year coming, so I'm headed out there in March.
Cool.
So that was something I got really into. And of course, always trying to write music. There are a few songs on the record that were written about the pandemic experience.
So It Goes. Talk to me a little bit about kind of the full-bodied construction, the vision, and just kind of how it feels on a visceral level to have this out.
Yeah, it feels like a big success, and it feels like a long time coming. Some of the oldest songs on the record were written around 2008, and the newer ones were written sort of like during the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic. So the tune "So It Goes" is a hymn for Billy Pilgrim, who is the protagonist of Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
so I'm deeply inspired by Vonnegut's writing, by writing in general. Big fan of Ursula K. Le Guin and Haruki Murakami, and so that, I think that kind of surrealism shows up in my writing, I hope.
Yeah.
And so the record is really a collection of these tunes that I've been working with a lot of different people over the past 10-ish years. And I found a band that is like my regular band now. So my band used to be the Book of Music, and whoever in the Seattle scene was available and was willing to play with me, I would, do these pickup gigs all the time. So I got to hear my music played by a lot of different musicians, and now I've got this regular band that I just adore, along with a couple of guest artists who are people I've played with for a long time in Seattle, including Wayne Horvitz and Jeff Harper. And so we've all been working together off and on for a long time, and it really feels like a culmination of all of this work over the past, like I said, 10-ish years, to really come together and make this record together.
So I got a Kurt Vonnegut story for you. I've always been a huge fan. So in
Hmm.
my 20s, running around with my friends, there was one of my friends that was really, really into him. And he had this idea that we were going to drive up to Cape Cod and we were going to get a carton of Pall Malls, which was his cigarettes,
Hmm.
and we were going to get a brick of coffee and we were going to have three questions. We were going to just arrive at his doorstep.
Yeah.
And we just really, really wanted to do it. And I kept thinking it really refined my level of like having the right questions. Because if you walk up to a guy like that, you better be on. You can't be like trimming out vowels and things while you're there. You got to be right there on the doorstep, ready to go.
Right.
But anyways, no, I always think fondly of that and Vonnegut. I do remember too, the morning after he passed, I always have to have noise in rooms, radios going. I remember NPR was going, and there was a report that said Vonnegut was famously an atheist, but if he ever believed in God, it would be because human beings made music. And I will always remember that quote, you know? So,
That's gorgeous. Yeah.
so let me ask you this. What do you ultimately hope the listener gets from this album?
It's funny, a friend of mine who works for the Musicians Union out here just posted something on Facebook, just posted a question in 12 words or less: what is it that musicians do? And I was like, I no one can explain that in 12 words or less. That's a big question. But I
Yeah.
think that what I'm really hoping for the listener is that they experience some of the breadth of what emotional catharsis means through art, for musicians, for art makers. So I really try to be transparent about my process. Like the one of the first singles on the record, Bumbling Thumbs Blues, is about that feeling of having not played with other musicians for a couple of years because of the pandemic, and trying to make music and connect with people again, and feeling like you're just in outer space. Like it's just really hard to connect with your instrument. It's difficult to reconnect with other people. And so it's an intentionally awkward blues. It's like I hope that people can hear that and can hear the humor in that and can hear the self-deprecation in that and can experience that as like a piece of connection with the art making. And there are a couple, I'm kind of a hopeless romantic. There are a couple of real, sappy love song type tunes on there. One that Wayne takes a gorgeous kind of piano intro on. And so, I want people to feel free to feel free.
Yeah. Yeah. So you moved to Seattle in 2010, correct?
Hmm.
Okay. Where were you born and raised? How did this music journey begin for you?
Yeah, so I was born in Southern California, but my dad was in the Air Force, so we moved around a lot. And I tend to tell people that I'm from Wyoming. I still have a 307 area code on my cell phone number.
Yeah.
And I did junior high, high school, and two undergraduate degrees, an international studies degree and a music degree with a jazz certificate at the University of Wyoming, so Laramie, Wyoming,
Yeah.
University of Wyoming. And so I've now lived in Seattle longer than I've lived anywhere else. But after graduating from the University of Wyoming, I went to the University of Michigan to pursue a master's degree in music in improvisation. So that degree really kind of opened me up to something. They have a program there called Creativity and Consciousness Studies that deals with meditation and like the sources, like big, like universal big sources of creativity, and how to tap into those, how to access flow states as artists. And so that really opened up kind of my desire to write more music and to kind of contribute to the jazz lineage, right? To be a part of this great American music. And so I moved to Seattle in 2010. I wanted to be on the coast. I wanted to be in a larger metropolitan area. I started going to a jam session called the Racer Sessions, which
Mhm.
is a free jazz jam,
Yeah.
kind of like open, non-genre specific improvisation jam. And from there, I met Naomi Moon Siegel, who is an incredible trombonist, also
Yeah.
putting out great records. And we formed a band called Syrinx Effect. Through her, I ended up playing with the Seattle Women's Jazz Orchestra, and Robin Holcomb did a guest artist and composer spot there, and kind of handpicked Naomi and I, and said to Wayne Horvitz, said to Wayne, was like, you should hire these people to play in your band. And that's kind of how I traced the lineage of how I started meeting people in Seattle. I went to the Racer Sessions. I got hooked up with Robin and Wayne, and the rest is history. I've gotten to play with just an amazing group of people, including, like crazy things like playing with Sir Mix-a-Lot as a part of the Seattle Rock Orchestra,
Yeah.
and it's playing with Terry Riley as a part of the big art installation for the Seattle Art Museum downtown. So I've had a lot of really incredible performance experiences here. And it really just comes down to like all of my friends in the scene. And like I said, I have this band now that I'm just super stoked on. So.
I went up to Seattle in 95, 96, I think, and I went up to visit friends of the family. And it was the whole grunge thing. And I remember getting bootlegs and coming back, and it was gold, Pearl Jam, Wizards demos. But I remember I went to a club at one point, and the person I was there with, I can't remember, it was some loose friend of the family in my age range. And they were like, if you see anybody from the scene here, you just got to be cool. You can't, you just don't get all freaked out. And I remember we were watching this band, and I can't remember, it was downtown around the corner from the Pike Market, and it was just really relaxed. And I remember the drummer kept hitting his bass so hard he kept knocking the microphone down. And of everybody in that crowd, the drummer for Soundgarden, I believe, or the bass player was in the crowd and came up and had tape and taped it on for him. And it was just someone was like, that's just what they do.
Yeah, it's
Those
a very
guys,
Seattle
right?
thing
Yeah, those
about.
guys are always up here and no one wants to be bothered. No one bothers them. So is that kind of because I know Kansas City has its own flavor of the way the Jazz Cats work together. Is that kind of a hallmark of the scene where everybody kind of mixes together and it's a relaxed environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think so I feel like every scene in a big city feels a little bit compartmentalized. Like, oh, there's the really straight ahead guys, and there's the more experimental musicians, and and everybody plays every kind of music because you have to survive. Like, if you want to be a performer,
Yeah.
you have to be versatile. Um, but I think one of the things that has happened recently in Seattle is Tom Marriott has got this Seattle Jazz Fellowship going, a nonprofit, and they have a space down in Pioneer Square, and that has become a real hub um, of the community, of the jazz community. They're doing free jazz walks in Pioneer Square that are open to the public that have been extremely well attended. I did my CD release show there in January, and it's really become a great place to hang, to meet other people. And there, I think that like a lot of venues in Seattle have that kind of vibe. Up until recently, Wayne Horvitz was a partial owner of the Royal Room, which is another kind of big music club in Columbia City in South Seattle. And I've been playing a regular gig at the Zigzag Cafe, which is an upscale cocktail bar near the Pike Place Market.
Yeah.
And that has started to become a hang too, where it's like on my nights off, they do live music 3 nights a week, and so on my nights off I'll go and I'll show up, and if I have a horn with me I will get asked to sit in, and that always feels really nice. And I think that is one of the hallmarks of the Seattle scene, is kind of like, if you're out to see people play music and someone recognizes you as a musician, they're gonna invite you up on the bandstand. They're like, no, come play with us. We
Yeah.
want you here. And that always feels really good to me. I don't always feel like doing it. Sometimes I'm like, no, I'm here for my cocktail and my French fries, like
Yeah. Yeah.
to enjoy
Uh-huh.
the music. But it does feel really friendly, and it does feel especially since the pandemic, it does feel like we're all in it together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, was speaking of live music, do you remember the first real seminal jazz show that you witnessed live that planted some seeds, whether consciously or subconsciously, for the way that you approach the stage?
Yeah, I love to tell this story because there's two. So the first one was Maynard Ferguson at
Wow.
the Casper College Jazz Festival in Casper, Wyoming.
Wow.
And so, as a high school student, I was up there performing with my high school jazz band, and it just blew my mind. The music was so aggressive and so loud and
Man.
so over the top. And it was like late 90s, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that was the first one. And then the one that the concert that I say is my first like real jazz concert, quote unquote, is I went down to the Boulder Theater, which is like a big deal. It's like 2.5 hours, 3 hours away from where I was living, and saw Chick Corea's Origin Band.
Wow.
And I fell head over heels in love with the energy, with Avishai Cohen's bass playing. So Avishai Cohen, the bass player,
Mhm.
just I had never seen anything like, I'd never seen that level of communication on
Yes.
stage before. Because Maynard Ferguson, that's a show.
Yeah.
That's a like,
Yeah.
everything is like um higher, faster, louder. And but the playfulness and the communication and the groove that Chick Corea's band had, just like, I was like, I want to do this. They
Absolutely.
are having so much fun. I want to have that kind of fun on stage.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So there's a record store here in town. I listen to vinyl. I love it. And especially with jazz, there's so many gems of
Mhm.
things that are out there. And I bought this mystery box, and it was like $5 jam full of albums. And I'm going through it, and I find a signed Maynard Ferguson album. He played at a high school here in Kansas City, and I'm like, damn, I'm framing this. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
That's
But
great.
but Chick Corea came through Kansas City in the late 90s, and he
Mhm.
played with the symphony. And and I can't remember who she was, but she was the conductor, and she kept trying to get him to stop, and he just kept going. And I could tell he was jacking with her, and it just got the crowd into a fervor. It was so cool, and he did it like two or three times. And it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to stop Chick Corea? I mean,
No
what?
one's gonna stop Chick
No one's
Corea.
going to stop him. So let me ask you this: what is it that gets you up every day to create this music, to be a part of this jazz community, to love what you're doing? What is that energy for you every day?
Oh gosh, that's a difficult question. Well, so there's, uh, I think the easiest way to say it, the best way to explain it is if I don't do it, I get real sad.
Yeah, I got it.
So, so it's like you don't know, I mean, going back to the pandemic, I know it's, 6 years ago now or whatever, but you really don't know what you've got till it's gone. And so I think that there's, I took a vacation earlier this year. I took 5 days and just went to Palm Springs by myself just to like chill out and relax and get some sun. And at the end of the 5 days, I was like, I didn't take a horn with me. I didn't, do any music while I was there. I saw some music while I was there, but I was like, I'm kind of bummed out. Like it's time to go back. Like I
Uh-huh.
think that there's so much beauty and connection in playing music and writing music and experiencing music, and to get a little woo woo, just like all the vibration of it, like it's really beautiful. And you feel it in your bones, you feel it in your brain, you feel it everywhere. And to have that kind of connection, and to be able to stand up in front of people and say, hey, I made this thing. And yeah, it doesn't really matter if you listen to it, but if you listen to it, then we have this thing in common, and we get to share that, and we get to experience that together. And I want to hear if you like it, and I want to hear if you don't like it.
Yeah.
Like I want to hear all about it, and I want to hear all about your music and how music, like exists in your life and makes your world better and more interesting. And I think that it's that drive. It's not like I wake up like bursting out of my bed like it's a great day to write songs, but it's more along the lines of, it's I'm good at a lot of different things. I have an international studies degree. I speak a decent amount of Spanish. I, passed the AP Calc test. Like, but I don't get sad if I don't do those things, but I get
Yeah.
sad if I don't play music.
The other thing, the other elephant in the room in America is things are not okay right now, and a lot of people need art, and I think art has always been a bastion. Um, and I think during some of the more tumultuous times in our history, art has come through from the Dylan 60s to levels of just different artists throughout history. And I think right now we're at an epicenter and so close to something that I don't think we all realize we need the escape of live music. Do you think about that more when you get on stage, when you're delivering music to people, that you're giving them some level of escape, some level of like not seeing the headlines for an hour or so?
Absolutely. I think there's a really healthy community of music fans in Seattle, in addition to music producers and music creators. And it's really important for us to gather in a real space. I mean, one of the things that of course, socially, politically, there's a lot of junk happening in
Yeah.
this nation right now, all over the world. There's difficult stuff happening, and I think there's also this kind of like looming, especially for creators, there's this looming like AI issue,
Yeah.
which is something that it's like, well, we want things to make our lives easier, but when it comes down to it, one of the things that makes existence easier, just like being here and dealing with everything, is when we can be together in the room together, sharing an experience, like again, feeling those vibrations. Like I think that live performance especially is so important, but also just sharing music with your friends. Like you're talking about, like going to a record store, buying a record, and then having a couple pals over and being like, check out this record,
Yep.
like when was the last time any of us did that? It's like as we get sort of divorced from the live music experience, or from the like physical media experience, how do we continue to connect with each other? Because we are physical beings. We do
Yep.
not just exist online. Like this is going to be on YouTube or whatever. Like that's one way to experience it. But also go see music,
Yep.
right?
Uh-huh.
So that's how I feel about it. I think
Yeah.
it's really important for us to provide that community space because it's also the space where we get to talk about these things with real humans
Mhm.
and not just be in the echo chamber of our social media or be in the echo chamber of like fighting with Russian bots on social media,
Yeah.
like
Right.
so it's nice to be able to get together in that space, even if it doesn't, I mean, we're all still dealing with it,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't, it's not, it's an escape in some ways, but it's also a place where we can come together and say, I actually want to just talk to another human about all of this stuff that
Mhm.
I'm feeling about what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what the concert experience does for people. That's why we have intermission. I mean, it's not just to sell drinks, right?
Yeah. I was just talking today about I went and I got tickets to see Wanda Sykes last year, and they have these bags that you put your phone in. And everybody
Mhm.
was walking around and talking and mingling, and everybody was in detox grabbing their phones, and their phones didn't exist. And it's like those things I think that we've lost. In fact, I've started watching that show Scrubs, and no one has phones in that. And it's so refreshing. It's like no one's walking down the hall distracted by their phone. They're just looking at the world and living, and that's been one of the byproducts of this high tech world we live in. Um, so let me ask you this: if you, so when you decided you want to be a musician, you have this idea in your head of what this world's going to be like. Every day you wake up as a professional musician, the way you do it. But then there's a reality of living your life as a professional musician. What's been the difference between the dream and the reality?
Um, I teach a lot, and I there was a time in my life where I was teaching exclusively because it was bringing in money. That I was like, this is a skill that I have that and while I've never felt particularly drawn to teaching, I'm teaching at a couple of universities now. I teach at Pacific Lutheran University and University of Puget Sound. And what that experience has been, so the experience of like ameliorating my career by doing this other thing that is not actively performing or creating music, is that it makes me think so incredibly deeply about music in a like, how do I explain this to another human kind of a way that I've recently started writing a book about as this kind of a like theory of improvisation or theory of improvisation pedagogy. Like, how do we talk about this? How do we explain it? How do we get it out of the math? Like, you have to learn these scales and do these things and get it out of the magic, oh, you'll just feel it, and like find this happy middle ground of like, how do we allow people to understand and experience what's happening on stage and participate in that themselves.
Yeah.
So I've been writing this book. I have a writer's residency at the Seattle Public Library. They have a beautiful writer's room, and I just found out that I got that for another year, so that's
Right on.
awesome.
Yeah.
And so what I have realized is that um, I can I am constantly learning through teaching, and that is something that I never expected. Um, I also didn't expect to be doing so much administrative work. That's so the teaching thing is like the positive thing that's like, wow, this has really brought a new way of looking at this music career into my life. And then there's all the administrative stuff that I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, why do I have to send so many emails? I'm a
Uh-huh.
saxophonist.
Right. Yeah. You're a creative. Why am I doing this? Yeah.
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 But that's a part of it. I mean, you have
Yeah.
to be good at a lot of different things, and it is the thing that is great about it is that it really is something new every day.
Hmm. Hmm.
I played a solo flute gig at the Chihuly, Glass Museum. I play with wedding bands, and I do top 40. I do experimental music on Monday nights with Wayne Horvitz, with some of the best, creative musicians in Seattle. I'm you name it, I'm in, and it feels really good. I'm really excited about it. I'm going to be doing like solo live looping on alto flute in at Central Missouri in a couple of weeks, and
Yeah.
so um and I get to share my music with people, which
Yeah.
is kind of the pinnacle of it.
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, Kate, everyone has a perception of you: family, friends, fans, students, colleagues, everyone on the bandstand, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, put me on the spot, why don't you?
This is the therapy question.
Yeah, this is the therapy question. Oftentimes when I play, I talk about where these songs come from, and some of these songs, a lot of these songs come from these very particular moments in my life. And so I don't think this is a cop out answer, but like I am a collection of all of these tiny little moments.
Yeah.
And a lot of because of how the human brain works, a lot of those moments are kind of uncomfortable moments. They're difficult moments. They're embarrassing moments. They're moments where I'm just trying to notice something that maybe nobody else noticed. And that's extremely vulnerable. And I think there's beauty in that vulnerability. And so I am like the tiny little forest creature that is like just asking you to take care of her. Like that's who I am, really.
Yeah.
As a musician, I'm like, here, I made this for you. Like,
Yeah.
do you like it? And so I think I have a lot of tattoos and I dress like a teenager most of the time. And so I think that, I think my students think I'm like the cool teacher. And I think my colleagues think I'm, in the music scene, I think my colleagues are like, wow, she's like so responsible and so successful because I'm able to balance all these different things. I think my parents think I'm a crazy artist, So and I think that on some level, all of those things are true,
Yeah.
But what I'm really here to do is to like help people connect emotionally over art. Like that's it. That's what we're
Absolutely.
doing. Like I want to see you and I want you to see me, and that's it.
For sure. So your newest album is on all the streaming platforms, so it goes. But it's also good too to have places like Bandcamp and places where you actually make money. Is that the best place to go?
Yeah, so kateplayssax.bandcamp.com. That's
Okay.
me. And you can find it on my website. You can also buy it on the Origin website. They
Okay.
have, so the imprint that it's on is OA2 Records.
Yeah.
And so you can buy it from them. But yeah, Bandcamp is great. We just had a Bandcamp Friday, which is where artists get 100% of the proceeds after
Yeah.
like processing fees, which is great. And I'm currently in talks with the folks at Origin to get the artwork adapted. We're going to do vinyl.
Oh,
So,
cool. Good
yeah,
for
so
you.
that'll be out in a little while. And I have a mailing list. Which you can sign up for on my website, which is just kateplayssax.com. So Kate Plays Sax is all of the things for me on the
Okay.
internet. So follow on Instagram, follow on YouTube, all that stuff, and that's how you'll find out about new music and new records. And back when we recorded this album, we recorded, I think, 15 or 16 songs, and
Yeah.
only half of those made it onto this record. And there's a whole other set of music that I'm really excited about that hopefully will be out soon in the
Okay.
future. And before that, there will be vinyl of So It Goes.
I love it. And I will put all of these links in the show notes. Kate, this has been wonderful. So great to meet you. I love the
Likewise.
music. Thank you so much. Look forward to profiling on the show. Best of luck.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah,
Bye.
you bet. Thank you.
Neon Jazz.